The will was read in a sterile lawyer's office, but the words exploded like a grenade in Emily's life. Her mother's fortune, every cent, every property, every heirloom was hers, the daughter she'd raised alone until that woman entered their lives. Now her stepmother's venomous glare burned across the table, promising war. Emily Carter, 32, sat rigid in the leather chair, her fingers clenched around a crumpled tissue. The lawyer's voice droned on, but she barely heard it. Her mother, Clara, had passed 2 weeks ago, and the grief was still a raw wound, bleeding fresh with every memory. Clara had been her rock, the one who held her hand when she came out at 16, whispering, "You're perfect as you are." Now Clara was gone, and her final act while leaving everything to Emily had ignited a firestorm. Across the table, Diane, her stepmother, sat with her arms crossed, her perfectly manicured nails tapping a furious rhythm. At 48, Diane was a vision of calculated elegance, blonde hair swept into a chignon, a tailored blazer that screamed wealth. But her eyes, cold and sharp, betrayed her fury. She'd married Clara 5 years ago, after a whirlwind romance that Emily had never trusted. Diane had always been charming, but there was a hardness beneath it, a hunger Emily couldn't name until now. "You can't seriously think this is fair," Diane hissed as the lawyer paused. "I was her wife. I deserve something." Emily's jaw tightened. "She made her choice," she said, her voice low but steady. "You heard the will." Diane's laugh was sharp, cutting. "Oh, Emily, you think this is over? You're a fool if you believe I'll let you walk away with everything." The lawyer, a gray-haired man named Mr. Thompson, cleared his throat. "Mrs. Carter, Diane's will is airtight." Clara was explicit. "Everything goes to Emily, including the estate, the investments, and the Manhattan apartment." Diane's smile was venomous. "We'll see about that." Emily's heart pounded as she left the office, the weight of her mother's legacy pressing against her chest. She stepped onto the bustling Manhattan sidewalk, the autumn air sharp with the scent of fallen leaves. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, and she pulled it out to see a text from Sarah. "I'm here. You okay, Sarah?" The thought of her fiancé brought a flicker of warmth to Emily's frozen heart. Sarah Bennett, with her infectious laugh and fierce loyalty, had been Emily's anchor through the chaos of Clara's illness. They'd met 3 years ago at a Brooklyn art gallery, where Sarah's bold photography, raw, emotional shots of queer life had caught Emily's eye. One conversation turned into coffee, then dinners, then a love that felt like coming home. Now at 32, Sarah was her partner in every sense, the one who'd held her through endless nights of grief. Emily typed back, "Meet me at the park." "Need you." She headed toward Central Park, her boots crunching on leaves, her mind racing. Diane's threat echoed in her head. What could she do? Contest the will? Drag Emily through court? The thought made her stomach churn. But there was something else, too, a nagging fear that Diane knew something Emily didn't. When she reached the park, Sarah was waiting by their favorite bench, her short blonde hair catching the sunlight. She wore a cream sweater and jeans, her camera slung around her neck as always. The sight of her made Emily's breath catch, a reminder of what mattered most. "Hey," Sarah said softly, pulling Emily into a hug. "How bad was it?" Emily buried her face in Sarah's shoulder, inhaling the familiar scent of lavender and coffee. "Diane's furious. She's not going to let this go." Sarah pulled back, her blue eyes searching Emily's face. "She can't change the will, can she?" "I don't know," Emily admitted. "But she's not the type to back down." They sat on the bench, hands entwined, as Emily recounted the meeting. The park was alive with joggers and families, but for Emily, it was just her and Sarah, a bubble of safety in a world that felt increasingly hostile. Sarah listened, her thumb brushing over Emily's knuckles, grounding her. "We'll figure it out," Sarah said firmly. "Together. She can't take what's yours." Emily wanted to believe her, but doubt gnawed at her. Diane had a knack for getting what she wanted: Clara's love, her trust, her life. What if she found a way to unravel Clara's final wishes? That evening they returned to their small Brooklyn apartment, a cozy space filled with Sarah's photographs and Emily's books. As Sarah cooked dinner, her signature pasta with homemade sauce, Emily sat at the kitchen table, staring at the letter Clara had left her. It was separate from the will, a handwritten note Mr. Thompson had given her after the meeting. "Emily, my heart," it began. "You are my greatest joy. This money, this legacy, it's for you to live fully, to love fiercely, to be unapologetically you. Don't let anyone take that from you. Not even Diane. Tears stung Emily's eyes. Clara had known. She'd seen through Diane's charm, anticipated her greed. But what hadn't she said? What secrets had she taken to her grave? As Sarah set plates on the table, her phone pinged with an email. She glanced at it, then froze. You need to see this." Emily took the phone, her heart sinking as she read the subject line. "You'll regret this." The email was from Diane, sent to both of them. "You think you've won, Emily, but you don't know the half of it. Clara kept secrets and I know them all. Give me what I'm owed, or I'll tear your world apart." Emily's hands trembled. What the hell does that mean? Sarah's jaw tightened. She's bluffing. She has to be. But Emily wasn't so sure. Diane's words carried a weight, a promise of destruction. As they ate in tense silence, Emily's mind spiraled. What secrets could Diane know? And how far would she go to claim what she believed was hers? By the time they went to bed, Emily's nerves were frayed. Sarah pulled her close, whispering, "We're stronger than her. We'll fight this." Emily nodded, but sleep eluded her. In the darkness, she felt the storm brewing. A battle for her mother's legacy and her own future. Diane wasn't just after money. She was after control, and Emily knew this was only the beginning. The next morning, Emily woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of Sarah humming in the kitchen. For a moment, she let herself believe everything was normal, just another day with the woman she loved. But Diane's email loomed like a shadow, poisoning the quiet. She dragged herself out of bed, her body heavy with dread. Sarah handed her a mug, her smile soft but strained. "You didn't sleep much, did you?" she asked. Emily shook her head. "I keep thinking about what she knows. What if there's something in Mom's past that could, I don't know, ruin everything?" Sarah sat across from her, her hands wrapped around her own mug. "Clara was a good person. Whatever Diane's hinting at, it's probably a lie to scare you." But Emily wasn't convinced. Clara had always been private about her life before Emily was born. There were no stories of old lovers, no tales of wild youth, just a blank space where a past should have been. Diane's email suggested she'd found something in that void, something she could weaponize. They decided to meet with Mr. Thompson again, hoping he could shed light on the will's origins. His office was in Midtown, a sleek high-rise that felt worlds away from their cozy apartment. As they waited in the lobby, Emily's phone buzzed with another message from Diane. "Check your mailbox. You'll want to see this." Emily's stomach dropped. "We need to go home," she said, grabbing Sarah's hand. They raced back to Brooklyn, the subway ride a blur of anxiety. When they reached their building, Emily tore open the mailbox to find a thick envelope with no return address. Inside was a stack of photocopied documents, letters, receipts, and what looked like a contract, all dated from before Emily was born. A sticky note on top read, "Clara wasn't who you thought. Give me half or this goes public." Sarah scanned the papers, her brow furrowing. "This looks like some kind of settlement agreement. Your mom paid someone off. A lot of money." Emily's hand shook as she read. The documents referenced a woman named Margaret, with vague mentions of discretion and reputation. There was no clear explanation, but the implications were chilling. Had Clara been involved in something scandalous? Something that could taint her memory? "We need to know what this is," Emily said, her voice breaking. "If Diane's telling the truth, she could destroy Mom's legacy." Sarah nodded, her expression fierce. "Then we dig. We find out what she's hiding before she can use it." They spent the day poring over the documents, but they raised more questions than answers. The settlement was from 1989, when Clara was in her late 20s, long before she met Emily's father or Diane. The amount was staggering, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and the recipient, Margaret, was a ghost. No last name, no address, just a signature on a faded page. By evening they were exhausted, but Sarah refused to give up. "We need to talk to someone who knew your mom back then," she said. "Did she have any old friends? Anyone who might know who Margaret was?" Emily thought of Aunt June, Clara's best friend from college, who lived in upstate New York. June had been at the funeral, her face lined with grief, but they hadn't spoken much. "June might know something," Emily said. "She and Mom were inseparable for years." They called June, who agreed to meet them the next day. The drive to her small farmhouse in the Hudson Valley was quiet, the autumn scenery a blur of reds and golds. Emily's mind raced with possibilities. Was Margaret an old lover? A business partner? Someone Clara had wronged? June welcomed them with warm hugs and tea, her cozy kitchen a stark contrast to the storm in Emily's heart. At 60, June was a retired teacher with kind eyes and a quick laugh, but her expression grew serious when Emily showed her the documents. Margaret, June said, her voice soft. I haven't heard that name in years. Emily leaned forward, her heart pounding. Who was she? June hesitated, her fingers tracing the rim of her teacup. Margaret was someone your mom loved. Before your dad. Before everything. Emily's breath caught. Loved? Like, romantically. June nodded. Clara was figuring herself out back then. She wasn't open about it, not like you and Sarah. It was the 80s and things were different. Margaret was her first love, but it ended badly. Clara never told me the details, but she was heartbroken. And then there was money involved, some kind of deal to keep things quiet. Sarah squeezed Emily's hand under the table. Do you think Diane knows about this? Sarah asked. June's eyes darkened. If she does, she's playing a dangerous game. Clara worked hard to build a life for you, Emily. She wouldn't want this dragged up. Emily felt a surge of anger. Diane was exploiting her mother's past, turning love into a weapon. But there was more to uncover, and she needed answers. Is Margaret still out there? She asked. June shook her head. I don't know. Clara cut contact after the settlement. But if Diane has these documents, she's been digging. Be careful. That night back in Brooklyn, Emily and Sarah lay in bed, the weight of the day pressing down on them. What if Margaret's still alive? Emily whispered. What if she's working with Diane? Sarah kissed her forehead, her voice steady. Then we find her first. We protect your mom's legacy. And we protect us. Emily clung to her, but the fear lingered. Diane's threat was no longer just about money, it was about exposing a part of Clara's life that Emily had never known. And as the days passed, the stakes would only get higher. The search for Margaret consumed Emily's days. She and Sarah scoured public records, social media, anything that might lead to the mysterious woman from Clara's past. But Margaret was a shadow, her name too common to pin down without more details. Every dead end fueled Emily's frustration, and Diane's silence was deafening. No more emails, no more threats, just an eerie calm that felt like the eye of a hurricane. One evening, as they sat in their apartment surrounded by papers, Sarah found a lead. Look at this, she said, pointing to an old newspaper article from 1989, digitized in a library archive. It mentioned a Margaret Ellis, a young artist involved in a legal dispute with an unnamed, prominent businesswoman. The details were vague, but the timing and location New York City matched the settlement documents. Could this be her? Sarah asked, her eyes bright with hope. Emily stared at the grainy photo of a woman with dark hair and a defiant smile. Maybe. We need to find out if she's still in New York. They hired a private investigator, a gruff but efficient man named Tom who specialized in tracking people down. He warned them it could take weeks, but Emily didn't care about the cost. She needed answers, not just for the will but for her mother's truth. While they waited, Diane made her next move. Emily received a call from Mr. Thompson, his voice tense. Diane's filed a lawsuit, he said. She's claiming undue influence, saying Clara wasn't in her right mind when she wrote the will. Emily's heart sank. Can she win? It's unlikely, Mr. Thompson said. But she's hired a shark of a lawyer. They're digging into Clara's past, trying to paint her as unstable. You need to be prepared. Prepared for what? Emily wanted to scream. For her mother's memory to be dragged through the mud? For Diane to twist love into scandal? She hung up, her hands shaking, and told Sarah everything. We need to fight back, Sarah said, her voice fierce. If Diane wants a war, we'll give her one. They met with Mr. Thompson the next day, armed with questions. He explained that Diane's lawsuit hinged on proving Clara's mental state was compromised when she updated her will 2 years ago, during her cancer treatment. But Clara had been sharp until the end, her decisions deliberate. The will was notarized, witnessed, and backed by a letter from her doctor confirming her lucidity. Still, the lawsuit was a public attack and the press caught wind of it. Tabloids ran headlines like, "Lesbian heiress faces stepmother's wrath," and "Family feud over millionaire's fortune." Emily's phone buzzed with notifications, each one a dagger to her heart. She and Sarah stopped going out, avoiding the photographers lurking outside their building. One night, as they hid in their apartment, Sarah pulled Emily onto the couch. "We can't let her control us," she said, her voice soft but firm. "You're Clara's daughter. You're strong. And I'm right here with you." Emily kissed her, a desperate, hungry kiss that said everything she couldn't. Sarah was her light in this darkness, her reason to keep fighting. But the fear lingered. What if Diane's lawsuit uncovered something that changed how Emily saw her mother? A week later, Tom called with news. "Margaret Ellis is alive," he said. "She's 58, living in a small town in Vermont. Runs an art gallery. I've got an address." Emily's pulse raced. "Did you find anything about her connection to my mom?" "Not much," Tom said. "But there's a record of a payment from Clara in '89. Matches the settlement amount. Margaret's kept a low profile since then." Emily and Sarah drove to Vermont the next day, the road winding through snow-dusted hills. The gallery was a quaint space filled with vibrant paintings, and Margaret was there, older, her dark hair streaked with gray, but unmistakably the woman from the photo. She looked up as they entered, her eyes narrowing. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice cautious. Emily took a deep breath. "I'm Emily Carter, Clara's daughter." Margaret's face paled. "Clara," she whispered. "I heard she passed. I'm so sorry." They sat in the back of the gallery, surrounded by canvases that screamed of passion and pain. Margaret's story came slowly, each word heavy with memory. She and Clara had been lovers in their 20s, a secret romance in a world that wasn't kind to women like them. When Clara's family found out, they pressured her to end it, threatening to cut her off from her inheritance. The settlement was hush money, a deal to keep Margaret silent and out of Clara's life. "I loved her," Margaret said, her eyes glistening, "but she chose her family. I don't blame her. It was a different time." Emily's heart ached. Her mother had loved fiercely, just as she'd taught Emily to do, but she paid a price for it. "Did Diane know about you?" Emily asked. Margaret frowned. "Diane? No. But Clara reached out a few years ago, after her diagnosis. She wanted to apologize, to make peace. I told her there was nothing to forgive." Emily exchanged a glance with Sarah. Diane's secrets were a bluff, a twisted version of a love story Clara had buried. But the lawsuit was real and Diane wasn't done. As they drove back to New York, Emily felt a mix of relief and resolve. Clara's past wasn't a scandal, it was a testament to her courage. Now, Emily had to protect that truth no matter the cost. Back in New York, the lawsuit loomed like a storm cloud. Diane's lawyer was relentless, filing motions to delay the estate's transfer and digging for anything to discredit Clara. Emily and Sarah met with Mr. Thompson weekly, each session a battle to protect Clara's wishes. But the pressure was suffocating, and the media frenzy only grew, painting Emily as a greedy daughter stealing from her grieving stepmother. One morning, Emily found a new article online. Clara Carter's hidden past. Was she blackmailed? The piece hinted at the settlement with Margaret, twisting it into a sordid affair. Emily's blood ran cold. Diane had leaked the documents, spinning them into a narrative that sullied Clara's name. "She's trying to break us," Emily said, slamming her laptop shut. Sarah pulled her into a hug, her warmth a lifeline. "We'll fight this," Sarah promised. "Your mom's story deserves better." They decided to go public with the truth, but carefully. Sarah, with her knack for storytelling through photography, suggested a projected series of images and captions honoring Clara's life, including her love for Margaret. "Let's show the world who she really was," Sarah said. "Not Diane's version." Emily agreed, and they spent days crafting the project. Sarah photographed places Clara loved: the Central Park bench, the Brooklyn bookstore where she'd worked, the hospital where she'd fought cancer. Emily wrote captions, pouring her heart into every word. "This is where my mother taught me to love. This is where she fought for me. This is where she lived bravely, even when the world told her not to." They posted the project online and it spread like wildfire. Friends, strangers, even queer activists shared it, praising Clara's courage and Emily's devotion. The narrative shifted, and Diane's smear campaign began to falter. But Diane wasn't done. One evening, as Emily and Sarah prepared for a court hearing, Diane showed up at their apartment. She stood in the doorway, her face a mask of fury. "You think your little art project changes anything?" she spat. "I have more. You have no idea what I'm capable of." Emily stood her ground, her voice steady. "You're not getting a cent. This is my mother's legacy, not yours." Diane's eyes narrowed. "You'll regret this, Emily. I know things about Clara that would ruin you both." Sarah stepped forward, her voice icy. "Get out. Now." Diane left, but her words lingered like poison. That night, Emily couldn't sleep, her mind racing with what Diane might know. Was there more to Clara's past? Or was Diane bluffing again, desperate to hold on to power? The next day, they received a call from Tom, the investigator. "I found something," he said. "Diane's been in contact with a tabloid journalist. She's trying to sell a story about Clara's secret double life. But there's no evidence, just her word and those old documents." Emily's relief was tempered by anger. Diane was grasping at straws, but her lies could still do damage. They needed to end this, and soon. At the next court hearing, Diane's lawyer presented the settlement documents, claiming they proved Clara's instability. But Mr. Thompson was ready, armed with testimony from Clara's doctor and friends, including June, who spoke passionately about Clara's strength and clarity. Margaret even sent a written statement, confirming the settlement was a private matter, not a scandal. The judge, a stern woman with sharp eyes, listened carefully. "Mrs. Carter," she said to Diane, "your claims lack substance. The will is clear, and Miss Carter's project has shown the court who Clara was a woman of integrity. Unless you have new evidence, this case is on thin ice." Diane's face was a mask of barely contained rage, but she said nothing. Emily felt a flicker of hope, but she knew Diane wouldn't stop. Not yet. That night Sarah proposed. It wasn't planned, just a quiet moment in their kitchen, the weight of the fight making everything feel urgent. "Marry me," Sarah said, her eyes shining. "Not because of Diane or the will, but because I want forever with you." Emily's tears fell as she nodded, pulling Sarah into a kiss. "Yes," she whispered. "Always." The proposal was a spark of joy in the chaos, a reminder of what they were fighting for. But as the court date loomed, Emily braced for Diane's final move, knowing it would be her most desperate yet. The courtroom was packed on the final day of the hearing, the air thick with tension. Emily sat beside Sarah, her hand gripping hers under the table. Diane sat across the aisle, her face unreadable, but Emily could feel the weight of her stare. This was the moment that would decide Clara's legacy and Emily's future. Mr. Thompson presented their final arguments, emphasizing Clara's intent and the lack of evidence for Diane's claims. The judge listened, her expression neutral, as Diane's lawyer made a last-ditch effort to paint Clara as manipulative and unstable. But the tide had turned. The public's support for Emily's project, combined with the testimony from Clara's inner circle, had dismantled Diane's narrative. Then Diane took the stand. Her voice was calm, almost too calm as she spoke. "Clara was a troubled woman," she said. "She hid things from me, from everyone. I loved her, but she was secretive, and this will, it's not what she would have wanted." Emily's heart pounded. Lies, all of it. But Diane's composure was unnerving, as if she had one last card to play. That card came in the form of a letter, presented by her lawyer. It was from Clara, dated a month before her death, addressed to Diane. "I regret the pain I've caused," it read. "I want to make things right." Diane claimed it was proof Clara intended to revise the will, giving her a share. Emily's stomach twisted. Was it real? Clara had been weak in her final days, her mind clouded by pain and medication. Could Diane have manipulated her into writing it? Mr. Thompson cross-examined Diane, his voice sharp. "This letter is vague," he said. "It mentions no specifics about the will." And Clara's doctor confirmed she was lucid when she reaffirmed her wishes. The judge nodded, her eyes narrowing as she reviewed the letter. "Mrs. Carter, this document is not sufficient to overturn a legally executed will. Do you have anything else?" Diane hesitated, her facade cracking. "No," she said finally, her voice tight. The judge's ruling came swiftly. "The will stands," she said. "All assets go to Emily Carter, as Clara intended. Case dismissed." Emily exhaled, tears streaming down her face as Sarah pulled her into a hug. The courtroom buzzed, but for Emily it was just them, her and Sarah, victorious against Diane's greed. Outside, reporters swarmed, but Emily and Sarah slipped away, heading to Central Park. They sat on their bench, the autumn leaves falling around them, and Emily felt her mother's presence in the wind. Clara had fought for her, even in death, and now Emily could live the life her mother wanted, free, proud, and loved. Diane disappeared from their lives after the ruling, her threats empty without the court's support. Emily and Sarah used part of the inheritance to fund a foundation in Clara's name, supporting queer youth and artists. Margaret even contributed a painting to their first fundraiser, a vibrant piece that spoke of love and resilience. On their wedding day, 6 months later, Emily stood in a white dress, Sarah in a tailored suit, their hands joined under a canopy of flowers. June was there, tears in her eyes, and the park was filled with friends who'd become family. As they exchanged vows, Emily felt Clara's love surrounding them, a legacy stronger than any fortune. "I love you," Sarah whispered, slipping a ring onto Emily's finger. "I love you too," Emily said, her voice steady. "Forever." They kissed, the crowd cheering, and Emily knew this was the ending her mother had dreamed of, a life where love won, no matter the cost. Thank you for listening. Like and subscribe to get notifications about next videos.